This is the Snarketing Podcast, for marketers by marketers, talking to marketers with just a touch of snark. This episode was recorded live from the ANA Masters of Marketing Conference in Orlando, inside the halls of the Rosenshingle Hotel. Now, here are your hosts, Valerie, Vespa, and Matt Wurst.
Hi, and welcome to our second annual ANA Snarketing Podcast special. I guess it's special. Is it special?
It is, because we are in a special place.
And we're here with a special person. Someone we
hey,
are
guys.
super excited to talk to and with. Now, Lucy, you're someone that we've gotten to know over the years at events like this, but also just you are a luminary in
I like
your
to
own
think
way.
of myself as your third.
You
That's sometimes not around, but when I'm here, it matters.
if this is an audition for you to join the podcast as a co-host, that we were not put on notice.
Well, gotta be on my best behavior then.
Well, we'll see how
or
it
maybe
goes.
my worst. I don't know.
We always prefer your worst.
Well, that's I always do as well for obvious reasons. But I want to get into some business-y related things, which we don't always talk about.
Lay down the business.
Because we are snarky, but also marketers in this case. But we're at the ANA here in Orlando. We're with 25, 26, 3,500 people. I don't know. I've lost count. I started to count at dinner last night. What brings you to an event like this? Because your company, which we'll get into in your role, is well-defined, but it's also evolving. Is telling an updated story part of what you are looking to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mix of that. I think why I've always liked ANA is because it's an opportunity to actually hear from the marketers that we're attempting to sell and partner with, but not just like on a panel where it's self-serving by whoever is sponsoring the panel, but actually to hear from CMOs like the story of their company, or like if they're talking about AI, they're talking about how they're actually leveraging that to run commercials, a better business, et cetera. So to me, I think that's part of the benefit, is actually hearing from marketers that are very good at telling their story at the most senior level, and like they're choosing their own adventure in terms of what they're sharing. I think additionally, it's giving an opportunity, as Vistar is kind of coming together with T-Ads and Bliss, for us, one, as a team, to sort of figure out a little bit of how we come together, like both physically and how we want to show up in market. And I think that it's an opportunity to get people that live in other parts of the country together in one place, which I feel like is often kind of difficult to do outside of like a company offsite.
So we're day one here at the ANA's Masters of Marketing. What is there any sort of soundbite that you can share with the audience, like that you found extremely interesting so far? Because I've had a few myself, but was wondering your thoughts.
So I guess this morning, listening to the GM, Chief Growth Officer, talking about, I think, going back to like the AI piece, but like actually how they're applying it. So I think there's so much like fear around AI taking everyone's job. Obviously, Amazon had a big update this morning talking about all the robotics work that they're doing. But I felt like what was interesting about what he was talking about was, one, how they're using this to like redefine the actual process of making cars, but also helping to like produce better content. And the idea that, I think they said a year ago, AI producing some of these commercials and spots, they were like 40% of the way there, where now it's closer to 80. And then I also thought, and I would say I'm just kind of getting into like the F1 wave. Yes, I know I'm super late, but the idea that they're looking to actually launch a team. It'll be the first team I think they're launching in 10 years that will be new to the F1 kind of different team dynamic. And they'll launch in 2026. And it's really about showing on a global level, because I think we as Americans are very familiar with the brand, but really trying to highlight that on a global scale. And they're winning awards in Germany against German manufacturers. But like, what a better, like there is no better stage than F1 if you actually want to get in front of a global audience. So personally, I found that super fascinating, and I'm excited to kind of see how that evolves.
So you're still learning stuff. At what point, though, will this conference be fully attended by solely AI clones of ourselves?
I mean, it could be any day now. But who would, be able to live their best lives at the Rose and Shingle Creek better than a true human being. I don't think a robot could fully embrace it the way we can.
Well, look, the content has evolved over the years. We were talking about Web3 stuff 3 or 4 years ago. We've been talking about social and creators for the last 5 to 10 years. But your large part of our industry, I will call it out of home, but there is so much more to it than that. I don't want to just give you 3 letters.
IRL.
Sure.
I like that better.
You've been a foundational pillar of the Vistar team, almost 12 years, is that right?
Yeah.
It's like
I'm a middle schooler.
You're almost at your Vistar mitzvah.
Exactly. I never had one, so I feel like that should be an industry event that we should all attend, perhaps in Orlando at A&A next year. I'm just saying, looking for sponsors.
Will we find enough Jews for it to have a minion at this
in
marketing?
ad tech? Absolutely. The Bergs, the Witzes, there's so many of us just crawling around. Just look at a name tag.
So as an early participant who has grown into a leadership position, not only at your company, but in the industry, what has kept you engaged, fascinated, curious, skeptical, all the things that go into your role as it's evolved through the years?
Yeah, I think that in the beginning, it was like we are almost going to try and change people's opinions about the value out of home can bring. But I think the challenge that we had at the time was just the actual number of sheer screens that were digital. You're talking about almost like a scale problem at the same time that you're trying to increase demand. If the screens aren't digital, you can't programmatically serve an ad to them. So I think number one, like just the sheer number of screens that have become digital. But I also think that just adding more screens to the mix is not creating value. So I think one is a lot of companies are digitizing their best boards, their best assets. They're also thinking about new places to be in, whether that's retail media, whether it is almost we'll call it like retail adjacent, thinking about some of the ways that overall like we're seeing out of home being something that can fuel like transportation and all of these different ways that like we move throughout our city. It's like this idea of how do we fund in real life experiences, the same way that like to a degree ads kind of keep the internet free-ish. I feel like for a long time
it's an option, right?
Exactly.
Watch this ad so you can then have free internet on the plane.
Correct. And it's a lot of that. even just thinking about like you don't have to pay to get to every website. Yes, there's a lot of companies that have firewalls, but at the same time, like you browsing through the internet, thinking about, using Google or, eventually it's going to be using ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity and how ads are going to be a format there. Like these are things that allow for us to make use of space, largely in the digital world for free. When we think about out of home, they actually play a huge part into like lowering costs to a degree that are helping to create better infrastructure. So I think that with that being said and kind of going to like where we were versus where we're at now, I think that out of home gives an opportunity to reach people in a less cluttered environment with a clear message if done well. And the fact that it is digital allows for you to be more relevant in that time. I think with more data being pervasive, and obviously Vistar was acquired by T-Mobile earlier this year. And part of the thesis around that, I think, was, I would say like two big aspects. One was, how do we take a really powerful data source, like the data that sits within T-Mobile, and bring that into a medium like out of home to have better accountability, better targeting, better understanding of outcomes. Yeah. Exactly. And the other piece was T-Mobile was a customer of pretty much every part of Vistar's services and offerings. That's everything from,
so the partnership was already naturally there and growing.
And their whole thesis was, how do we talk about this as a for marketers by marketers? Like they were already drinking their own. By the way,
that's our tagline.
Kool-Aid.
Isn't that our tagline? Isn't that what Al says in the intro? We got to go back and listen. I think that's what he says.
Maybe.
Perfect. So maybe we can be acquired by T-Mobile at some point.
I look good in magenta.
Yeah, you do. Exactly. I know. Well,
who doesn't?
Honestly, I felt like almost embarrassed to be like, I think I already own a bunch of magenta. I don't even necessarily need to just like go out and get it, where I feel like a couple other people were like, ooh, I'm gonna need to like go shopping. Where does one get a magenta jacket? But at this point I can tell you, and there is a T-Mobile store. Oh. So my starter jacket, which is T-Mobile themed, is pretty cool. So watch out for that one. Amazing. At CES.
I'm not sure I'm ready for that, but we have a few months to get ready for and prepare
what comes
for
with
that.
Vegas. Yeah, a detox as well.
So going back to the fact that you went from like sort of startup mode to 12 years later, like a legitimized business that you clearly created the value in the out-of-home space for programmatic buying. Like, what do you think, what were some of the adversities you had to get over, and like, where do you think the business sits today as far as like growth potential? Like, obviously there's still a lot more to do, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's really easy to say, here's the roadmap that other channels went through. They've already been through this. Like, this is coming, this is gonna happen. Out of home, we should embrace this.
Sure.
I think no matter what, and I'm probably guilty of this too, like, we as humans are resistant to change in any way, shape, or form that comes about. So I think trying to change how buyers buy out of home, how investment teams view out of home within the funnel, the commercial dynamics of out of home within agencies or even within brands. I mean, I think people forget that there are some brands like Netflix and Coca-Cola that have literally gone out and purchased out of home because they see the value in it and they're like, we want to own this. We don't want anyone else to be on these screens. And so I think that there was always value. No one was questioning that, but it was the how and the why. How am I buying this and why am I buying it that I think is changing. And I think, and I talk about this a lot, programmatic is not a channel. It is just a way of buying something that can have efficiencies. Doesn't mean that it's cheaper. It means that you can more efficiently target an audience. You can understand the entire ecosystem of what you want to buy. You can look at a single market that might have 40 different media owners in that market and think about how you can actually siphon through that and understand what you want to buy. So I think a lot of it was breaking down these like into distinct problems and solutions and helping for brands to see it, but also like brands are comprised of people, agencies are comprised of people. So part of it is just spending a lot of time with humans
people
to get them to understand how also we together could up level this industry. And it was also spending a lot of time with our publisher partners and seeing how this could potentially drive incremental value and future proof, not just be something that looked at it as like a way to run towards change that could diminish the value of a medium that I think they've told a very strong story in market. It's like, how do we bring those pieces together to make it better than what it is now versus like pulling that value down?
It's not like direct, like non-digital buying or programmatic. It's it can
Exactly.
be both. Right?
So spending time with all those people that you just mentioned is obviously one of the many benefits of being in a place
Yes.
like this. But as an out-of-home outsider, as a fan from the outside, I'm an in-homer,
You've always
I guess.
been a fan.
Yes. I appreciate art wherever
this is
it
our
is.
home, so we are in home. We'll be heading out of home later,
We will be, but I think that's kind of an interesting point, which is the definitions have evolved, at least from my perspective, because when I walk around with a mobile device, when I am connecting my viewing experience or my engagement or my consumer experience, media and commerce have kind of combined in a way.
Yeah.
But I don't know that the attribution or the measurement has kept up with it everywhere. And I'm not just talking about it out of home, but across the totality of the devices.
In itself is actually opportunistic. And I think other channels are running into a lot of the problems that out of home has always faced. Out of home has been trying to solve a lot of this of, you can only understand so many people that were exposed. What are you tying that to? What are the different attributes you can look at? You can't click on the screen, or even if you could, you're only talking about
How do you know I saw it? I mean, you're kind of
Correct.
broadly generalizing eyeballs to conversions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, like think about shopper marketing, how that's evolved. Retail media was a thing. It just wasn't called that, and it sat within all these disparate buckets. And you worked with a single measurement provider to look at measurement across all of your buys. The data that was sitting within the measurement companies came from all of the major retailers. Now, retailers want to own that data. That's their gold. So they're not all providing this data to third-party sources anymore. So we're having to reinvent just what measurement looks like in general. Like, how do you create a scalable measurement solution? Every channel is facing a bit of that, of a mix of, are you willing to share your data with a third party? And two, are you big enough to say, buy with me and I will provide you essentially like siloed data, are enough of your sales happening in that place for that to be okay versus looking at the entire landscape and comparing. So I think with out of home, over the past decade, like we've been breaking down a lot of those barriers of being able to understand who is exposed to all different formats and try and attach that to a learning that could be foot traffic, it could be sales lift, working with a lot of these third parties that I would say now, for better or for worse, like you're dealing with a lot of modeled data, but not just in out of home. And so the idea of getting deterministic data is challenging across the board, where I think out of home, as opposed to it being seen as having less, it is actually quite similar to the data that you're getting in other channels because it's only giving you a part of the journey. And so I think out of home, you can combine all of the different screens that exist in out of home into a singular measurement opportunity using the same measurement partners that are measuring your display, your mobile, your CTV, your audio. And so I think that there's a lot more outcomes that are coming out of it, but that's also the hope of working more closely within our T-Mobile Magenta family.
The family, yes.
To have some of this data that is unique. And I would say
Robust.
it is not something that is available everywhere. And we know where it comes from. And I think that has a lot of value in it.
So as one of the big themes here has been the accelerated pace of change, right? Like things are bigger and they're changing faster.
Yeah.
Is that as true in your purview and in where you're focused, or are there things that you kind of wish you could accelerate even faster?
Can I give my opinion?
Yeah, please.
I mean, I feel like our industry needs to be faster and bigger. And I think that we've been so flatlined for so many years in terms of, making small progress, but really not seeing the results from a revenue standpoint or a percentage of overall media investment, perspective. So I think we can only hope for big, monstrous change from all the majors within our business.
Yeah, well, and I think there's an opportunity to speak outside of the vacuum that for a long time out of home has kind of sat within, where we're talking to each other. We want to bring others into the fold. We want to think about how social can sit side by side and be at the same conferences and in the same rooms as social companies, not just talking about out of home as being this pillar that sits off to the side. I also think that you can't say you want a seat at the table, but then be completely resistant to change. Like there has to be a willingness to embrace some of that opportunity and
uncertainty.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
And it's being students again. It's a little bit of, and I think very often conferences lead to, there's so much opportunity to meet with people, but I think A&A is a great example of, if you actually listen to some of the case studies, you can actually learn about what brands are actually doing, what they actually care about.
Yeah.
And to me, that's how every single meeting with any client should start. It should not be about, wait, I need to get through my slide deck. It should be, tell me about what is happening in your business. What do you care about? What are you buying today? What are you not getting out of the partners that you're getting today? And to be honest, from there, it should be less of, okay, great, now let me take you through the exact talk track that I already had planned. It should be then, how am I going to augment, or maybe shut my computer and not talk through a PowerPoint deck to actually help solve your problems, versus making sure that I'm going to get the sound bites that I've been practicing in the mirror and get them out of my meeting.
That's why I'm so glad we didn't prepare for this conversation in any way, and we just got to the heart of and
I've mostly been trying to figure out how far I sit back because I'm so short that do I want my feet to touch the ground or no? What's going on?
We want you to be comfortable when you're a guest on the Snarketing Podcast. But I have good news for you. We've moved very quickly through this. This is an accelerated version of the Snarketing Podcast, but we're going to go even quicker to our lightning round questions.
Oh, I was unprepared for this, but I can't wait.
Well, that means you haven't listened to the first 52 episodes of this, because we do a lightning round in every episode. So, you know what? Being unprepared sometimes is just as
Matt
fun.
Wurst, you are the worst.
Thank
you for calling me out on your podcast.
That is
and I have
beyond
listened.
snarky.
I just don't always get to the end. I'm very
That's
distracted.
fair. So
it's the ADHD that lives within.
We do like to hear ourselves talk, and occasionally even like to hear what our guests have to say. That's true. So, lightning round question. We'll make it A&A and out-of-home themed combined.
A lot of acronyms.
When you go to events like this, are you someone who wakes up early and does the breakfasts and the runs and the yogas at 5 a.m., or do you like to sleep in and recover from the night before?
I would say somewhere in between. I'm not a big breakfast person.
Okay.
I usually try and not sleep in. I mean, we are on the East Coast, so that helps. I feel like on the West Coast, I can really embrace my early self. However, I would say unless you're offering something like, I don't know, like goat yoga or stand-up paddleboard, I don't need to go on a run per se with my colleagues. They don't need to see my lack of enthusiasm or sounding like I have emphysema while we're running. I don't think that's going to win me any good looks from new brands that are looking to work with Vistar.
It's not always a good new business hour. Same with the golf outings, right? If you're such a terrible golfer,
that's me.
And
yeah,
I might not want to play with you, and therefore it wouldn't be a great experience. But
correct. But I am down for whatever adventure that you want to go on. But I will give fair warning that I might not be good at it.
Is there someone here that you've either met or want to meet that you kind of had circled on the guest invite list before we came here?
Well, I can't give that away. I haven't found them yet, but there are a few that are on my short list for sure. Some of them are people that I haven't spoken to ever before that, I'll try and come up with a meet cute scenario. And then there are some other people that I've looked forward to reconnect with. Even last night, I had an opportunity to meet with one of my favorite clients that I probably hadn't seen in 4 years. That's based in Boston. His name is George. He works at Havas/Arnold. George Sargent, one of my faves. So that was a great one that I was hoping that I would run into, and got the opportunity on day one before our hangovers had really kicked in.
Wonderful. So, you've already made the most of your experience here. You have a question?
Vistar is a global company. What interesting places have you traveled to this year? What was one of your favorites?
Ooh, well, they try and keep me away from our global markets because they're afraid I won't come back, especially if I was to go down under to Australia. But I would say Cannes is always a great opportunity it is the United Nations of Vistar. We all stay in apartments together and spend a lot of time obviously with clients, but it is one of the best opportunities we've had. I would say in addition, Vistar for the first time in I think 5 years since pre-COVID had a full company global offsite in Puerto Rico, which was amazing. And I think part of it too that I've learned is, yes, we all have global nuances. However, we are the same in every country in terms of who we are at our core. And so it was a lot of spending time with people that I don't spend all the time with, when I'm, whether in New York or even within the US. And so it's an opportunity to learn from a lot of our colleagues that I've loved. I would say some of those are the best.
As you anticipate, expect, and in many ways lead where we are going next in this industry, what are you most excited about, and what do you think we can expect in the next 6 to 12 months as far as what is changing, evolving, and going to move the industry quickly?
So I think that change is sort of a funny concept because in a lot of ways it's actual change. In other ways, it's reinvention. So I think that if we sort of split it out into 2 lanes, there's going to be things that we've never seen before, ways of doing things, ways of working, ways to implement products into our workflow. Separately, I think we're going to see a lot of reinvention. I think search is a great example of we're going to see dollars that we're going to search coming into a lot of these AI platforms of thinking about how we're interacting and asking questions. But I also think that we're going to have a lot more to learn of how each brand is embracing these changes individually, how that's changing their operations, their manufacturing, what leadership cares about, at the end of the day, these companies need to make money, and there's a lot more options on the market. So I think that there's going to be a huge opportunity for out of home, and as you mentioned, like in real life, to be a way that a brand can stand out that is going to help them to escape from the clutter that's going to exist in a lot of the other mediums.
Well, both by the din of the crowd that is now exiting the ballroom and the out-of-home signs that the ANA has placed, it looks like it's lunchtime. So thank you for joining us, Lucy.
Thank you for having me.
We love talking with you. We might have to do a full extended episode.
I will listen to all 52 episodes on my flight back, but like on 10 speed, since it's only a 2.5-hour flight.
We appreciate your dedication. Thank you.
You guys are the best.
Thanks, Lucy.
That was Lucy Markowitz, and that's a wrap on our conversation for this edition of the Snarketing Podcast. Thanks for joining us here, and for those who we saw in Orlando, wasn't that fun? Until next time, I'm Al Until I Hentes telling you to stay snarky.